As the war between Russia and Ukraine drags on, the intensity of the war grows. Putin, who set out with plans to occupy Ukrainian territory in a short time, was helpless thanks to the resistance of the Ukrainian army. The successful resistance of the Ukrainian army eventually turned into an offensive, and Putin's fears came true. The Russian army has lost a lot of power in Ukraine and now has difficulty in advancing. Russian leader Putin has lost control of Russian troops in Ukraine. The recent explosions and fires within Russia's borders have shown that the war is not only in Ukraine but has also spread to Russia. The Ukrainian army has been conducting frequent airstrikes inside Russia to intimidate Putin with long-range missiles supplied by the US and Western countries. Russia, which has been launching airstrikes on the capital Kyiv and many Ukrainian cities since the beginning of the war, has reduced its attacks as Ukraine has responded to these attacks. The explosions and fires that took place inside Russia in the past days have revealed the claim that the Ukrainian army is conducting a new air operation. Explosions and fires at a factory and an oil depot in the city of Belgorod, located on Russia's border with Ukraine, caused great panic in the Kremlin. A large fire broke out at a factory producing metal structures for bridges in the town of Borisovka in the Belgorod region. In addition, an oil depot located very close to the factory started to burn simultaneously. People living in the region shared the images they took on their social media accounts and called for help. It turned out that the burning bridge metal factory had previously produced metal structures for the construction of the Kerch Bridge on the Crimean Peninsula. Ukrainian forces are believed to be responsible for the fire, as the Ukrainian army has recently stepped up its operations inside Russia's borders. Ukrainian government officials have not commented on the fire, but Russian officials have stated that it was the result of an attack. The governor of the Belgorod region, Vyacheslav Gladko, said that the factory was attacked and bullets hit the factory, and that no one was hurt at the moment. Recently, we have been witnessing frequent fires and explosions within Russia's borders. Over the past few months, the Ukrainian army has targeted military sites within Russia's borders that are considered dangerous. The Bratstvo battalion, made up of Ukrainian volunteers, continues to work with the Ukrainian army to inflict significant damage on Russian forces. It was previously announced that a helicopter belonging to Russia was destroyed, but there was no statement from Russia on this issue. Weeks later, a statement came about the destroyed helicopter. The Bratstvo battalion, consisting of Ukrainian volunteers, announced that the Russian helicopter was shot down by them. It is said that there were senior officials from the Russian Interior Ministry on board the downed helicopter. Explaining how the operation was carried out, the volunteer soldiers stated that they knew that the helicopter they shot down was carrying important people, and that is why they prioritized this operation. Describing the operation, the volunteers stated that they quietly entered the Russian borders and spent the night in a closed place. In the early hours of the morning, they heard the sound of a helicopter, and a small reconnaissance plane confirmed that it was a helicopter. They fired at the helicopter from a distance of 4 kilometers with a portable anti-aircraft missile system. The Bratstvo battalion volunteers said that they could not see whether the missile hit or not, but they heard a huge explosion, after which they quickly left the area. The helicopter was shot down weeks ago, but Russian government officials have been reluctant to comment on this, so the Ukrainian volunteers said they wanted to clarify the matter. This battalion, acting independently of the Ukrainian army, is dealing a major blow to the activities of the occupying Russian forces in Ukraine. You may also have heard of the Bratstvo battalion in many operations organized by the Ukrainian army. This volunteer battalion has already played a major role in the destruction of Russian military bases on Ukrainian territory. One of the most important features of the battalion is that they can easily provide intelligence with their civilian identity, and thus carry out their operations quietly. This downed helicopter was never reported in the Russian media, but Ukrainian authorities knew that it had been shot down. This incident, which the Russian authorities and the Russian media tried to keep secret, was revealed by the accounts of the Bratstvo battalion volunteers. In the same way, the Ukrainian army continues to carry out operations against the occupying Russian troops. The Ukrainian army has organized operations in areas where they believe the Russian occupying troops are densely populated and ammunition is stacked. The places where the operation was carried out were very important for the Russian army. The Ukrainian General Staff made a statement saying that The Ukrainian army destroyed a Russian anti-aircraft missile mechanism. Thousands of tons of ammunition and dozens of Russian soldiers lost their lives. The Ukrainian army has significantly increased its operations against Russia with the equipment support it has received. Clashes continue in the Bakhmut region, where the war continues intensively. After the occupying Russian forces captured the city of Soledar, their next target was the city of Bakhmut. The Ukrainian army does not let the Russian forces pass here with the defense lines it has established in and around Bakhmut. Russian soldiers and Wagner mercenaries are currently deployed in this region. In addition, prisoner soldiers collected from Russian prisons by Wagner Company, founded Yevgeny Prigozhin, are sent to these regions. Russian leader Putin is now using all the power of his army to capture the city of Bakhmut. But despite all Putin's efforts, the Russian army cannot succeed here. Although Putin is trying so hard to take the city of Bakhmut, the unwillingness of Russian soldiers to fight is one of the factors preventing the capture of Bakhmut. Yevgeny Prigozhin, CEO of Wagner, stated that intense fighting continues on the Bakhmut front and that they are having difficulties overcoming the Ukrainian army. However, the Russian media is saying that the Ukrainian army has failed in Bakhmut. Since the Russian media is under Putin's control, the Russian leader often publishes news in favor of the Russian army in order to suppress his own people. Anti-war and pro-Ukrainian reporting is banned in Russia. Many Russian opposition officials say that Russian news channels do not reflect the truth, but the Russian people are desperate. Many news channels in Russia are forced to bow down to Putin. For this reason, even independent news channels hesitate to reflect the real news. While Russian leader Putin banned access to thousands of websites in order to prevent the Russian people from learning the truth, he started to impose penalties on news channels against Russia. Fearing that the Russian people will rise up and take to the streets, Putin is using all the means at his disposal. The vast majority of the country now harbors hatred against Putin. The biggest reason for this is that Putin decided on his own to invade Ukrainian territory. Not only that, Putin declared partial mobilization and forcibly conscripted Russian citizens into the army. Thus, the anger of Russian citizens against Putin increased even more. However, Putin's regime of repression in the country prevents Russian citizens from mobilizing. In any protest, Russian security forces intervene and detain protesters. Tens of thousands of Russian citizens have been detained since the beginning of the war. Minority citizens protesting against the war are subjected to harsher interventions. Russian security forces do not hesitate to bully minorities protesting in regions such as Dagestan and Crimea. Putin manages to suppress the entire Russian people with the power he wields. For this reason, Russian citizens are forced to remain silent.